the books of religion contain the moral codes, how we should shape our life on earth, so as we please Allah. And when we return to Him, we return with honor, with respect to Him, with full confidence that we have been pleasing Him throughout our lives. That is why the revelation of books is essential. Stage by stage, man was progressing towards civilization, towards a social realization, which developed further into many systems, and it was progressing as a man, but divided up into so many clans and factions and regional tribes and peoples, and the communication had not yet developed so far as to make the social animal of man into one entity as such. So at that stage, how could a universal religion be revealed? It would be a very naive God to reveal a universal religion to man, while the man had no concept of universe either. It was just a regional and parochial thinking and parochial development of various human activities in sociology, in politics and things. So the time was not ripe for that perfect religion to be revealed to man at that time. There is no religious book in the world which mentions the institution of prophet having taken place, having its manifestation anywhere else in the world or in any people other than the people to whom that book was revealed. For example, go to study Bible, study the book of Zoroaster, study the book of Confucius, study Gita and so on. You'll be surprised to find a total lack of mention of any reformer having come to any people in the world at any time, except for the reformers of that line. So if those books were addressing man at large, there should have been that mention, that the entire mankind has been in contact with Allah and the reformers have been sent to them. So because the Holy Quran is the only book which refers to the institution of prophethood having been manifested in other places in the world and other people and other times. It doesn't leave anything out. Every possibility is mentioned. That positively shows that this book is addressing the whole mankind. Because if the Holy Quran even generally briefly mentions that their prophets have come and true prophets from Allah in other places, if a Muslim goes to China, he can tell them that we believe in your prophets. And it's a common heritage because the Holy Quran tells us. So there is a common platform of negotiation. But those books who do not mention this phenomena, they cannot claim a common platform of negotiation. So it is on this ground that we prove that the claim of the Holy Quran is correct and held good. Why all the other prophets have not been mentioned in name in such detail as the prophets of a certain area and a certain faith have been described in detail. The reason is obvious, that the number of prophets known to have come to mankind is about 100,000 or more. 124,000 is said. But let's call it a few thousands, even a few hundred. Now conceive of a book mentioning the details of all these prophets, where they came and what happened to them and what happened to their enemies and everything about them. How big that book would have swollen. In the Holy Quran, apart from Huzur Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is mention of only 24 prophets by one count, and by another count maybe 23. Altogether,
according to my estimation, there are 25 prophets mentioned, including Hazrat Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But anyway, with one plus or minus, this is the general picture. And still, the mention of these prophets has taken a large part of the Holy Quran. So conceive now of a situation where 100,000 prophets are mentioned. How many words are there in the Holy Quran? Words. Now verses are 6,000, words are a few thousand, and letters are 100,000 plus. So imagine the names of the Prophet, if they were just mentioned, how big the book would be. So why choose one particular line then? The reason is obvious. The tree on which the last and the most consummate manifestation of prophethood was to appear, that naturally had the first preference. Because when you mention appearance of man biologically, and you count down from man backwards to the early stages of life, you don't mention every animal shape or form which may have will come to existence during this process. You work backward on the same tree on which man was to evolve. So if Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the object of creation, the only important tree worth mentioning was that lineage of prophethood on which Hazrat Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to appear. And that is exactly what has been done in the Holy Quran. Another aspect is this, that by mentioning all these prophets, the Holy Quran has gone about in a most scientific way to preserve all the possible situations. The situations mentioned in relation to these 25 prophets are so all-comprehensive that you can't conceive of a situation happening anywhere in the world to other prophets which would lie outside the domain of the situations which the Holy Quran has covered. You can't even conceive of a situation. It's impossible. So that shows that even in lack of mention, the book remains complete. All things worth mentioning have been mentioned with reference to these prophets which have been mentioned in the Holy Quran. So I can't conceive of a better scheme. It's impossible to conceive of a better scheme than the one adopted by the Holy Quran.
The Holy Quran does not reject the earlier books, but with one modification in its statements, that the earlier books were originally revealed by God and they contained truth and nothing but the truth, though not the whole truth. That's another difference between them and the Holy Quran. But they were later on interpolated by human beings, and it was they who added falsehood to the truth. And now you find them as ruins. You can study the general plan and understand that originally they were of a high order, and they belonged to the region of truth, the area of truth, but no longer so. For instance, if you go to a ruin of a great palace, from the ruin you can understand that originally it was built for a very useful purpose, and it served the purpose while it stood intact. But you no longer can be protected even from rain, not to mention great armies today as you find them. So the Holy Quran does not say that these books were not revealed by God. It says they were revealed by God, all right, but they were changed by human beings, not by God.
The Christian scholars have worked a lot on this, and they are gaining more and more evidence as to the fact that many a portion of the so-called Bible were attributed to Bible later on. And they have been going through the process of turning those portions out and adding some more, which they thought belonged to the Bible originally. Many things have been proved not belonging to the original text of Bible, which were added, and many things were perhaps left out. And this process goes on, and the scholars differ between each other. So the element of doubt is positively there. Nobody can say it is the same book which was revealed after Moses to his followers, because they themselves differ what was revealed. So that is the superiority of the Holy Quran which we claim. But about the Holy Quran, they have tried to prove that whatever was revealed went through a change. And even the most hostile Orientalists had to agree in the end that all efforts to prove that the book which was mentioned by Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or claimed by Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a spoken word of Allah went through any change whatsoever after his death. It is exactly as it was claimed by Hazrat Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that it was revealed to him. So these are the two distinct features of the Bible and the Holy Quran, and they are not debatable at all. The difference between the revelation of the Holy Quran and the revelation of Bible is not a debatable difference between Muslim scholars and the Christian scholars, because they both agree to this. Only a common ignorant man may go into debate about these things, but all the Christian scholars believe that Bible is not a spoken word of God. Bible is in fact a very large word in application, which applies to the Old Testament as well as to the New Testament. And at places it just becomes a recorded history by the followers of a prophet. And it is closer to the tradition, as we call the tradition of the Holy Prophet. Bible in that sense is much closer to tradition. Only when it refers to quote-unquote words of Allah, within quotes and unquote, those are the real words of Allah. The rest of the Bible is just narration of what happened during the time of prophets. Now look at, for example, at the first chapter of the Holy Bible, that is Genesis, yes? Now in the Genesis, it is supposed that this book was revealed to Moses. Of course it was revealed to Moses. But it then says in the end, then Allah's servant Moses died at that ripe age or that age. So if that had been revealed to Hazrat Moses, how could he say that then he died? That positively proves that this was a narration by those who had followed Hazrat Moses and mentioned this after his death. So all the Christian scholars believe and they agree to it that Bible, both Old and New Testament, are not spoken word of God.
Once somebody sent a book to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal under the title Yanabiyul Islam, in which a lot of allegations were hurled against Islam, and the author tried to trace each account of the Holy Quran back to some biblical version. So the name was Yanabiyul Islam, the original sources of Islam. And Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu just wrote one short verse of the Holy Quran on the title of this book and finished with the subject. And that was Fiha Kutubun Qayyimah. In the Holy Quran are those books which have the now let me translate Kutubun Qayyimah. Those books which have lasting values, which have been revealed earlier, they are called Kutubun Qayyimah. Qayyimah means something which stays, which has the staying power, which has a lasting value. So the Holy Quran itself claims that in this book you will find all the previous books which have staying power in the world, which have any lasting value for the mankind. So that was the answer. It is no discovery on the part of somebody that Holy Quran speaks of earlier teachings or borrows from earlier teachings. The Holy Quran claims that it borrows from the earlier teachings only in a defined way, in a qualified manner. And that qualified manner is that all the hocus pocus is rejected, but the truths are taken only. And the Holy Quran is selective in that choice. So if you understand that principle, then it is becomes so easy to rebut all such attacks on Islam, because the principle is simply this: Fiha kutubun qayyima. All that Holy Quran has taken is that which is true, which has a lasting value, which has no nonsense about it, which is not false, and all that is false and hollow, etc., or man-made, that has been rejected by the Holy Quran. And many a version of the Bible is amended by the Holy Quran. It is not taken in toto. Amended to a degree that it completely transforms the quality of that biblical statement. From just a banal, ordinary statement, it rises to a high level, very high level. All the statements of the Holy Quran, which are a repeat of Bible, are not exact repeat. They omit certain things, they add certain things, and they present it as a whole truth.
The Holy Quran came as the judge of whatever had passed before it. So the Holy Quran took such teachings from the earlier books as had the staying power, everlasting truths, and rejected the falsehood added later on by human beings. So all the interpolations made by the later period scholars were rejected by the Holy Quran. So it gave a true picture of original teachings of Torah as well as the teachings of Jesus Christ, whatever they were. So in light of the Holy Quran, when you preach to the Christians and the Jews, you will find enough evidence in their books to prove it to them. Otherwise, if you reject the books, they would say, well, we believe in our book, you believe in your book, and there is no common platform. But the Holy Quran does not say. It says they still contain passages using which you can refute their views from their own books. So this is the best approach you should make in the light of the declarations of the Holy Quran. You study their books in which they believe and tackle them through this way.
Compare the teachings of the Holy Quran and the observations it has made on various aspects of nature, and compare them with the Bible and their observation and the observations made in various books of the Bible. And you will find that there is such hocus pocus as compared to the declarations of the Holy Quran, and so faulty and so contradictory to its own statements, that it's no longer a book to be reliable, to be considered reliable. But even the non-Muslims have started pointing out these facts. There is a book written by a French scholar who has compared the scientifically the observations made by the Holy Quran on certain aspects of nature and the observations made by the Bible on the same aspects of nature. And he points out categorically, repeatedly, and proves his point by the latest scientific authorities, by quoting the latest scientific authorities as well, that each time the Holy Quran is correct, and each time the Bible is either totally incorrect or mostly incorrect. And then he points out that the strange thing is that it's not that in the majority of cases the Holy Quran is correct. Without exception,
Every time, without fail, the Holy Quran is correct, and even on those subjects on which Bible is completely silent. It speaks of such knowledge as was completely unavailable to the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and which was gradually being revealed to mankind through their studies for the next 1300 or 1400 years. And yet that knowledge was available to him. He said, this is absolutely fantastic. Nobody can believe in it to have originated from human beings.
The book was revealed in verbal form first to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah revealed it to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then he dictated what he received from God to be scribed by the human scribes. And there were many companions of the holy founder of Islam who became scribes for writing the Quran, because Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself did not know how to write. So there were many scribes, like Hazrat Ali was one of them. There was one Abdullah, by the name of Abdullah. So there were quite a few companions of the Holy Prophet who at different times were employed for the scribing of the Holy Quran. Arabic, of course, is the most perfect language. It is the mother of all tongues. It's most expressive for the type of subject which is discussed in religion, or subjects which are discussed in religion. In the shortest possible words, it conveys vast meanings, and it contains meanings in a sort of concentrated form. So because of this special ability of Arabic to express more in less words, this language was chosen in particular.
It was the Archangel Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, who himself was sent and deputed for this task, who came to Huzur Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and conveyed this message from God that that particular surah is to be named this. And it continued happening at various times. Sometimes the name was given while the surah was being revealed, and sometimes it was given after the surah was revealed. But the whole process was completed in the lifetime of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and was categorically stated by him, so that after his demise, nobody else had to indulge in guesswork. The question now becomes that why more than one name is given to a surah, even to the extent of 17 according to some. This becomes the question. That is only indicative. There are certain names who are distinctive, in the sense that one person is given a name so that he becomes distinct from others. He holds a personality apart from others, and there is no confusion left. But there are other names which are descriptive names, and they indicate towards certain attributes of that person or that surah. So all these names of the holy surahs of Holy Quran can be divided into two categories now. One, personal name. That personal name is given in the Holy Quran and mentioned in the Holy Quran. Although that also is derivative name and can indicate certain things. But they still are personal names, and they do not belong to the category of descriptive names. Other names of the same surah are descriptive. Although they do not exhaust the subject, yet certain important features of those surahs are pointed out. For instance, Surah Fatiha is also called Surah Hamd, Al-Hamd, Ash-Shifa, or Sabul Masani, and so on. Because Hamd of God, praise of God, is the most important theme mentioned in this surah. And everything revolves around that Hamd.
Hamd in fact is the pivotal point. If you know what Hamd is and if you get yourself trained to praise Allah as Surah Fatiha teaches you, then you get everything. So the central point of Surah Fatiha is mentioned. So this is what I mean when I say descriptive names. Certain important features of a certain surah are pointed out.
If you read the books on commentary of the Holy Quran, the old classical ones, most often than not they would mention which verse or which surah was revealed when. And this subject has been taken up by all the early scholars. So from that you can compile a new list yourself according to the chronological orders. But the problem is that all the verses in a surah do not belong to that chronological order. Sometimes a verse was revealed after the surah, and Hazrat Jibreel told Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that verse has to be taken back in time and put in that surah. And what happened was that no Khalifa ever rearranged the Holy Quran. Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam instructed himself, all the scribes, as to where a verse is to be put and in which order the surahs are to be kept. Now this is again a miracle, because even with notes nowadays, you can't organize such a big book in that manner. But Ahmadiyya Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did it verbatim. Only Allah sent angels to him, and according to the instruction, he used to do it. But those who do not believe in that, they can't produce this miracle again, even today. A man with the best memory can't perform this miracle, that a book which he has been dictating, according to them, over a period of say 23 years, and then all along he has been arranging the verses in order, with the result that the sum total is a beautiful order and a meaningful continuation is found not only in the surahs themselves, but also in the connecting surahs. Opening chapter is related to the ending chapter of the previous one. Closing chapter relates to the opening chapter of the next surah. So this is a very miraculous thing that happened at the time when Hazrat Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't know a single word to write himself.
The end surahs, the surahs which were revealed at Mecca in the early part of Islam, make the end part of the Holy Quran. And because that was a time when Islam was, and the concept of bowing to Allah and to none other, was launched anew, fresh in Mecca. And Islam went into direct struggle with the disbelievers on this issue. So the verses revealed in the early part of Islam carry parts discussing the grand glory of Allah in such a manner that many a time those verses overwhelm human feelings and sentiments, and one feels like bowing down and going into prostration. So at such occasions, when Hazrat Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's heart was very specially moved, God saw to it that He permitted him, or even directed him, to leave the recitation for a while and go into prostration to express his desire and bow down to the will of Allah in glory for Him. So those were the occasions when this happened. And as I have related to you, in the early times there was no namaz, no Sharia or the law was revealed as we know it today. Only in parts and bits it was being revealed. So the main issue, the main point of discussion and struggle was prostration to God or prostration to
ungodly things. And this was the very essence of religion. So in the early surahs, you find sajda much more than in the later surahs. Because it so happened that during the compilation of the Holy Quran, the later surahs made the first part, and the early surahs the last part, so you see this difference in it.
The fact is that Arabic language has various inflections. Like in English too, there are many dialects. But the substance remains the same. The same essay, for instance, can be read by a Yorkshire man with different pronunciations and different inflections than a Londoner or a Cockney person or a person who speaks Royal English. So all these, and there are so many other variations which do not change the subject matter or the syntax. It only changes the inflections. So such differences are found in Arabia as well. And the Arabic language was pronounced differently by very different tribes. But because Arabic language is also very sensitive to this regard, and there is always a danger of that inflection carrying a different connotation as well.
Yes.
So this was the real danger which Hazrat Usman sensed rightly. Although there was no different version of the Holy Quran which was being read by various tribes, but various pronunciation and various inflection was used by some tribes. So to establish a unity in every regard and to see to it that there is no possibility of any change in future, Hazrat Usman, what he did was, he chose the central Meccan dialect. That dialect in which the Holy Quran was originally revealed as it was. So what he did was, he stuck to the pronunciation and dialect in which the Holy Quran was revealed, and obliterated the possibilities of other dialects interfering with the reading of the Holy Quran later on in future. So there is no objection whatsoever. I mean, no sensible, knowledgeable Christian can ask such a question. And some of the inflections are just not that. They are fully authenticated because Hazrat Jibreel, when he brought the Holy Quran, sometimes he pronounced the same sentence in different ways, with various different inflections on certain words, which only indicated that these words can be used in a wider sense. For instance, Khatam al-Nabiyyin is also known to have an inflection of Khatimun Nabiyyin. And basically the word is the same, but it has slightly different meanings. So they are called qiraat, one qiraat and the other qiraat. But again, that is the authentic revelation. There is no change by any human being. This is established to have been revealed to Huzur Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in two different ways, and both ways are authentic, but the other is just explanatory. Again, it doesn't deviate from the substance much, only it's a possible connotation attached to the same word. So this is authenticated by hadith, by the tradition. But central text of the Holy Quran remains unchanged.
What is Holy Quran? It can't be followed unless interpreted, unless understood. It is impossible to follow the Holy Quran without attributing a certain interpretation to its verses. And it is there that the mullahs differ. The Holy Quran categorically claims that it is not a book which can be read by any intelligent or learned people and correctly understood. Nowhere has this claim been made in the Holy Quran. The very first verse of the Surah Fatiha tells us, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It is, of course, a guidance without doubt. It goes on to relate to us, but only guidance for those who are God-fearing. So the precondition laid for the correct understanding of the Holy Quran is not knowledge, is not a modern attitude, is not wisdom of anybody. It is just the fear of Allah. So that shows one would be guided by this book in accordance with the level of his fear of God. So you should pray to Allah for a higher level of fear of God before you enter into this exercise. Secondly, the Holy Quran tells us, La yamassuhu illa al-mutahharun. You will not be able to touch this book. No one will be able to touch this book except those who have been purified by God. So where is that exercise left as a choice to everybody? You wish to understand this book, no doubt. You try to disagree with certain scholars and their extreme positions on certain issues. Okay. But the Holy Quran tells you that the doors of entry to this book are locked, but for those whom Allah chooses to be purified. And then they begin to see the meaning of this book.
As far as the Saat Batan is concerned, it means that there are 7 layers of meaning to the Holy Quran. And they are continuous layers. That is to say, if you start from one point of view, reading and understanding the Holy Quran, you can continue till the end and the thread will never be broken. If you just, like a kaleidoscope, change your angle of vision and enter another thread of meaning, that would also be continuous. And although the words are the same, new meanings would appear to every word, and this will continue to be carried on and on by other words, following verses and so on. And they would not end even with the surahs. New surahs would take up the kajal from where they left, and like a medley race, they'll go on and on. So 7 butun means different layers of meanings. But it does not mean 7. 7 is a letter, a figure used by the Arabs to show perfection. And 7 could mean 7 plus many more. You can say when Arabs apply 7, 7 is the minimum. For less than 7, this figure cannot be applied. But it does not end at 7. It may mean much more. So, now coming to the second part of your question, when Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani commented on this, he took it to be the minimum 7. And from that he inferred that the Holy Quran has prophecies and predictions about all the huge changes which were to occur in the world, philosophies and attitudes and learnings and so on, great events. Not events but eras in fact. So he conceived that there would be 7 eras of learning for the mankind from the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam till the end of the time, that is the doomsday. And all these have been mentioned in the Holy Quran. And batan also means secret. So he is looking at the word batan in that respect, not as layers of meanings, but meaning that there are 7 great secrets contained in the Holy Quran, which apply to 7 different eras of learning and achievements by human beings. And they have been mentioned, and we are passing through now one era, but that would not be the end of it. Another an era may dawn upon mankind, which again will be mentioned in the Holy Quran. Nothing would be new to mankind. parable is to make things for you understandable and make them easy for your mental reach. And parables in a very short space of time speak of volumes on a subject which otherwise would occupy a very big space and very long description. So this is why parables are used to make subjects easier for you, not to make subjects difficult for you. For instance, when you speak of a garden, the Holy Quran repeatedly tells us of this philosophy, that whenever the Holy Quran speaks of anything which you know, it is only to draw attention to some common factors. And if you know a thing, only then you can think of some common factors in the other part. So that is the philosophy of every parable, and whenever the attention of human beings are drawn to things which are known to them, it means that you study the significance and philosophy of these things which are known to them. The unknown would become known to you through their help. That is the meaning. So you know, as everybody does, what gardens are for, what they do to mankind, what are their benefits. So whatever their benefits are physically here in this earth, they become benefits spiritually for us for the life to come. It's as simple as that. Even when mountains are described in the Holy Quran, that is the philosophy. It says apparently we're talking of these mountains, but in reality they are only parables, amsal, for you to think over them. For example, the Holy Quran, when it speaks of the mountains, وَلَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. They are only examples and illustrations for mankind, so that they may ponder over these questions and think over them and enter into a mental exercise. So to enter into a mental exercise and to think, that is one of the reasons why these parables are described. Why gardens are used, why they are useful, what are their purposes, when they are destroyed, why they are destroyed, what you do to them when enemies attack them, like in the form of beasts or birds or human beings, what happens to them, when diseases attack them, how they creep into them, what are the answers to those diseases. There is so much to be thought, to be investigated, so much to be said. And whatever you discover in this regard about the qualities and the nature and the dangers and the inherent benefits and the apparent benefits, whatever the nature is of your investigation, you will find that all these factors are also applicable to the spiritual world, to the garden described in the hereafter. So these things should be studied in detail, and wherever that similarity is not applicable, this is the beauty of the Holy Quran. It declares it very positively, that this similarity is only for this world. It will not be applicable in the garden we are describing in the hereafter. For instance, the milk is described, and you know that milk becomes sour after a while. It becomes attacked by bacteria. So the Holy Quran speaks of the milk and immediately tells us that milk will never turn sour. So it is the duty of the one who speaks of a parable to make the distinction whenever it is necessary. Otherwise, almost entirely it would be applicable to the example which is being covered by that parable. So much can be investigated, so much can be said about just one single parable, that it is impossible for me to exhaust this subject even in many sittings. For example, the Holy Quran, its revelation if it was revealed to a mountain, when all this has a meaning. This is why the Holy Quran says, "Allahum yatafakkarun," so that they can think and ponder.
So that means so much has been said in just a short sentence that once you begin to ponder over things, you will discover so many things. And this is not the only illustration in the Holy Quran. So many. Ma Ba'uzatan, for example. The example of a mosquito. What is meant by that example? The Holy Quran itself raises the question. Then kindling of fire, then the phenomena of lightning, then rain, its effect on the ground, its effect on various types of soil. The Holy Quran is so full of parables, it's impossible to exhaust them. And gardens are also used in various ways. Gardens of a certain people, two brothers for instance, behaving differently. And the characters of the two brothers who own those gardens. And the ultimate result of boasting of one. And so many other applications are made of gardens in the Holy Quran that it's impossible for me to exhaust the subject or even think of exhausting a very small part of the subject in one sitting.
I read no mention of any manazil in ahadith. This has been done by some Muslim scholars in the past to make things easier for those who recite the Holy Quran and who want to recite a bigger portion. So like the Quran was divided into rukus, which was not done at the time of revelation. So also other parts were added like separa. The Holy Quran was not revealed in separas at all. That was only to make things convenient for people who would like to recite the Quran. Some would recite, beginners may like to recite only a small portion, so a ruku would be enough for them. Those who want to recite more, they could finish a para, for instance, or half a para. Those who would like to recite still more would recite a manzil. This is the seventh part. So perhaps this was the intention, otherwise we don't find any reference of such things in the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Wherever we publish the Quran, we mention it in the introductory words that our system of numbering includes Bismillah, because we believe that between the Surah Fatiha and end of the Nas, everything which is within this is Quran. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim would not be considered as an extraneous thing. It most certainly is a part of the Holy Quran and a part of every surah before which it is mentioned. So we, logically, this ensues that we should count Bismillah as the first verse.